Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down big ideas.
So today, we're going to crack open a case file, a real head-scratcher that's been around for 2,000 years. And it forces us to ask a really fundamental question. What does it even mean for something to be the same thing over time?
Okay, so let's dive right in. This classic philosophical puzzle, it all starts with a very famous ship. So picture this. You've got the ship of Theseus. It's legendary, and it's made completely out of wood. But, time happens. Planks start to rot, so one by one, they get replaced with shiny, new aluminum planks. Now think about it. Each little change, it's pretty insignificant. It feels totally natural to say, yep, still the same ship, right? But here's the kicker. Eventually you get to a point where not a single piece of the original wood is left, so you're looking at a ship made entirely of aluminum. The big question is it still the ship of Theseus?
And just when you think you've got a handle on it, the philosopher Thomas Hobbes comes along and throws a brilliant wrench in the works. He asks this one simple question that changes everything. What about all those old wooden planks? The ones that were just tossed aside?
And suddenly, bam, we don't have one ship, we have two. Two contenders for the title of the real ship of Theseus. So you've got ship A, the aluminum one, which, you have to admit, has that continuous history. It's been the ship this whole time. But then you have ship B, the reassembled one, which is made of all the original stuff. This right here is the core of the paradox. Which one is it? Which one has the better claim?
Okay, let's make this real. Imagine the captain. He swore an oath. I will go down with my ship. Now, let's say both of these ships crash and they're both sinking. Which one does he go down with? Where does his duty lie? See, this isn't just some abstract thought experiment anymore. It's a real dilemma with some pretty high stakes.
All right, to get to the bottom of this, we're going to have to put on our detective hats, because the first big clue, it's been hiding in plain sight the whole time, right inside our own language. Turns out the whole key to this mystery is wrapped up in how we use really simple words like is and same.
Way back, over 250 years ago, a philosopher named Joseph Butler noticed something really interesting. He pointed out that when we talk about everyday stuff like ships or houses persisting over time, we're not exactly being super logical about it. He said we use what he called a loose and popular sense of the word same, mostly because, well, it's just easier that way. It's convenient.
And if you stop and think about it, we do this constantly. A single road can be Point Street in one town and Fall River Avenue in the next. Is it one road or two? Or think about a train that splits in half at a station. It becomes two trains. We even talk about the president as if it's one continuous thing, even though different people hold the job. Our language is just kind of built to gloss over these tricky little details about identity.
Okay, look here. Quick question. How many sentences are on the screen? Well, in one way, you could say there are two, right? Two separate sets of words written out. Philosophers have a name for this. They call them tokens. But in another way, there's really only one sentence, isn't there? It's the same idea, the same meaning. That's what they call the type. So which is it? The thing is, the right answer completely depends on what you mean by sentence. And this is a perfect example of how we just flip back and forth between different ideas of what the same means without even thinking about it.
Okay, I think we're getting somewhere. Let's simplify things even more. This simple case might just hold the key to the whole puzzle. So let's forget about the ship for a second. Let's just talk about a plain old table.
So let's follow this table over just 3 days. On Monday, it's made of 2 parts. Let's call them A and B. Simple enough. On Tuesday, we take out part A and put in part C. And on Wednesday, we take out part B and put in part D. Now, if we want to be super strict, like philosophically precise, we haven't had one table. Nope. We've actually had 3 totally distinct objects. The AB table, then the BC table, and then the CD table.
But come on, in real life, nobody talks like that. In our normal, everyday, loose, and popular way of speaking, we'd just say it's the same table, right? The philosopher David Hume had this awesome phrase for it. He said we feign identity. It's like we pretend there's this one single thing that stays the same, even when we know the parts are changing. And why? Because it's just plain easier.
And get this, there's actually a fancy philosophical name for this convenient little story we tell ourselves. It's called an ens successivum. That literally means a successive thing. It's this idea that what we call a single thing, like the table, is really just a whole series of different objects that follow one after another. So from this point of view, the ship isn't really an object at all. It's a story that connects a bunch of different objects over time.
Okay, now we've got the tool we need. We're armed with this idea of a successive thing. So let's go back to those two ships and finally close this case.
So here's the big reveal. The solution to the whole paradox isn't about picking ship A or ship B. It's about realizing that we've been switching between two totally different sets of rules for what identity means, and we didn't even notice. In our normal, everyday, loose way of thinking, we just followed the story. But in that super strict philosophical sense, identity is non-negotiable. If even one tiny part changes, boom, you've got a new object. End of story.
So let's lay out the final verdict. Case closed. In that everyday, loose and popular sense, which ship is the real one? It's the aluminum ship. It just is. Why? Because it's the latest chapter in that ongoing story, that ens successum. The original wooden ship, that's just a new project, a different ship someone built later. But, and this is the important part, in that strict and philosophical sense, the original ship of Theseus actually stopped existing the second that first plank was swapped out. From that hardcore perspective, both ships you see now are just new things. Neither one is identical to the original.
And there you have it. Case closed. The big mystery was never really about the ship. It was about us. It was a trick of language. The paradox only pops up when we mistakenly try to apply those strict philosophical rules to a situation where, honestly, we're all just using the easy, everyday, loose rules. We created the confusion ourselves.
But you know how it is. You solve one mystery, and it just opens the door to an even bigger, deeper one. So if things like ships and tables have this sort of borrowed, loose identity, what does that really imply about the nature of things?
Well, this leads us to another really cool concept. We can call the ship an ens per alio. It means a being that exists only through another. You can almost think of it as an ontological parasite. That sounds intense, but it just means its identity isn't really its own. It's borrowed. It's feeding on the existence of the actual physical parts that make it up at any given moment.
But if some things exist only by borrowing their being from other things, well, that implies something, doesn't it? Logically, there has to be another kind of existence. I mean, if you have parasites, you have to have hosts.
And these would be the hosts. The philosophical term is entia per se, beings that exist in themselves. Their identity isn't just a convenient story. It's not borrowed, it's real, it's absolute, and it doesn't rely on a carousel of changing parts to exist.
Now, the philosopher who really dug into this idea, Thomas Reid, he thought this perfect identity applied to something very, very specific. He thought it applied to us, to people. He argued that, look, a ship can be kind of new and kind of old at the same time, but you can't be sort of the same person you were yesterday. For Reid, your identity isn't a sliding scale. You either are that person or you're not. It's a perfect all-or-nothing identity.
And that, right there, leaves us with the last and maybe the most important question of all. We figured out the ship. We get it. Its identity is just a convenient story. And then successum. But what about you? What kind of being are you? I mean, really think about it. Your body is constantly replacing its own cells. Your ideas, your memories, your personality, they all change over time. So are you like the ship? Are you just a succession of different parts, a beautiful and complicated story that we label a person? Or is there something more? Is there a core you that stays the same through all of it, a true ens per se, a being that exists in itself? Now that is the real mystery, and that one is for you to figure out.